Hi everyone and welcome back. I hope that you are doing really well today. I'm so happy to be coming on today, talking very peacefully and very, just calmly about the incredible month ahead of July 2021. I feel very confident about this period of time, and I feel that we are really working with some incredible energy coming in now, really leaving heavy behind, dispelling heaviness, moving into a greater understanding of how many different elements and many different components are actually combining and coming together in our lives. I am so happy to be here. I hope you're all feeling really well. This is just going to be a comprehensive video about the month of July. I'm going to talk about some intuitive messages I'm having, as well as just some reflections and thoughts that I've been having about life navigation at this time. And then I'm also going to make a second chapter of this video about the astrology transits coming in throughout July. So there should be a lot of really impactful information in this video. For those of you who are new, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notifications. Also, this channel is on Patreon. If you want to get July readings early and ad-free, they should be going up, or they may already be up, depending on when you're watching this video. So I will link that below, as well as any other useful links in the description box. But yes, let's get right into this video, thinking about some of the reflections and intuitive messages that are coming in for me in July of 2021. There is definitely a full circle regression actually coming in July. This is Cancer season, as we know. We just came out of Gemini season in June, and a particularly intense, pointed Gemini season, as we had two eclipses. We had a very strong Mercury retrograde as well in Gemini that probably actually showed us the deepest fear, or the deepest concern, or the most communicable level of poignancy, okay? Or anything in our life that needed to be taken out, anything that needed to be omitted, anything that needed to be removed would have likely at least made itself clear, communicated itself in June. And here is July to actually probably follow through on the action. We move into the cardinal sign of Cancer, which is about action. It's about, even though we think of Cancer as that past-oriented sign, it is past-oriented, but it is also action that comes as a result of what has happened, of those past understandings. It's a cardinal sign. It's a paradox because it represents the past, it represents regression, but it also represents a linear forward motion as well. So Cancer, like all the water signs, has a paradox about it. And is July of 2021 a paradox in general? It can be. I feel that most people have such a dualistic approach to their lives right now, whether that's balancing, the career and the family, or two different businesses, or two different pursuits, or, seeing two different locations coming up as well. I do think that the duality is very prominent for a lot of people. And even to the point where it's becoming even more multifaceted. So 3 different careers, or 3 different things coming in. And we definitely have a question coming in July of, what do we really want to contribute most of our time to now? Is the way that we've been balancing time efficient? Is the way that we are seeing our health manifest something that we like? Do we like the way that our health is expressing itself right now? We are coming up to Leo and Virgo season after this, and those to me feel very important this year. Leo and Virgo season of 2021 are, to me, the most long-term pattern setting seasons. What do I mean by that? Leo and Virgo season, so August and September, are going to really decide even like the next 5 to 8 years of what we are worrying about when we're going to sleep at night, whether or not we have a feeling of peace wash over us regarding what we're participating in. Basically, we are in such a structuring time, such a structuring time. I get chills when I think about it. When I see the longevity of some of the structures created now, it's one of the most positive things I can imagine. Like, some of the people who are really making strong foundations here and now are setting themselves up for such a permanent sense of peace oncoming. And there is also a worry that many people have that if I can't figure it out, if I can't make my life structure what I want it to be right now, will I ever be able to do that? There are going to be further opportunities, but I will say, if we don't feel that we can give it to ourselves now, it's going to be less easy. It's going to be more difficult in the future to do it then, but never impossible. Never impossible. We have to watch out also for getting too fixated a mind about what is or is not secure. We can kind of set things too firmly in stone in a way right now too, but Cancer season is another chance, because this video is about Cancer season, not about Leo or Virgo season, but it's important to know in regards to Cancer season that this is one of the most important months of this year to, really make those decisions, or to know that you are not going to be putting yourself into certain danger, or to certain problematic experiences that might have been prevalent for a long time. Very easy to kick an addiction in this Cancer season. Also, this Cancer season, we'll talk more about this in the astrology portion. It starts out on this really watery note with a grand water trine, and then we get a lot of fire put in as well, and we kind of move back into this sort of fire air experience. And I'm feeling this within the collective too, and I'm about to look at the charts and look at that more through astrology, but what I'm feeling is that people go from this sort of deeper emotional complex, or from this need for emotional relativity to their goals, to their actions, and then they move just more into this traditional sense of what has worked for them. So in that way, regression. I'm seeing regression for a lot of people, and we think of regression a lot of times with a negative mind frame, and it's not always like that. Regression is not always a bad thing. There are parts of ourselves that we sometimes unknowingly lose that are positive, and then we start to associate a regression as something that is negative because we think that we're always growing positively. We're not always growing positively. It is possible to progress into a worse place. Progression and forward motion is not always great. It depends on how we're orienting ourselves. It depends on what direction we are progressing. And this is not a 2D plane that we're on. This is not a flat earth. This is a very three-dimensional and further experience. So we can progress in a lot of different directions and gain and lose positive and negative things. It's not quite simple enough to see that, wow, just because I lost that job, that was completely a negative experience. Maybe you progressed into a more entrepreneurial mindset. Maybe you start to understand money much better through the loss of that job. And had you kept that job, maybe it would have been 30 years of dissatisfaction in the long run. But you might, associate that progression out of that job as a negative experience right in that moment. So we have to really give ourselves the positivity of what's going on. I know that toxic positivity is a thing, but I really think that this is a poor time to be one of those people who is always cynical, or to be one of those people who always feels that mistakes have been made by every person. I think that that's really invites heaviness. I think that cynicism right now, baseless cynicism, is something that is so destabilizing and so intoxicating in a way that there's just really no ability to make any type of change if we are choosing those heavy mindsets. This is kind of heavy in its own way, but there is actually, this might sound crazy because I'm definitely one of those intuitives who is not tending to sugarcoat things, but this might actually be a bit of time for sugarcoating. That's wild. I've never said that in my years and years and years here on YouTube. I've never said that, but this is actually a time to sugarcoat a little bit of what you have. This is a time to be like, wow, yes, I do have this. Yes, I do have this quality, and yes, it has helped me. Even if you can see certain qualities and actions that have been destructive, I feel that an interesting part of healing right now deals with how we categorize our actions and how we categorize what we're partaking in right now, and the way that we think about it, like the vibration that we give to our majority output, our jobs, our studies, our families, our relationships. Just by how we communicate to ourselves, this is what we should have probably thought a lot about in Gemini season. Just how we communicate to ourselves about what we're partaking in determines a lot of what that ends up being for ourselves, And I think that we have a big mission here in Cancer season, as Cancer is the sign of self. It is the sign of the emotional sense of home within. We have the need to go from that communicative phase in how we think, how we signal, how we accept or not accept in the mind, to move into the emotional sense of home energetically that Cancer offers us, and really accept that we have made things as good as we could. We have tried our best. We have put that effort in. And even if our results were unanticipated or not what we expected, they are there. And to a degree, there's some amount of security in any result, even if it's not what we would consider the desired result. There is a feeling of connection to higher source through any result. So we have to think about results right now. We really have to think about how we set out to do something, and then the result that we get and how we come past that result. Are we setting ourselves up to do well in the future by how we interpret the results of the past? That's, to me, seems to be a very important area of healing right now, because it's kind of like a domino effect. Even like say we categorize something in our lives as a failure, or as something that fell through, or as something that we didn't do right. That can start to create a domino effect for the future, and you start to operate off of a foundation of failure, and it's never gonna be different than that. So we have to really be able to sugarcoat it in a way. We have to be able to, and this is a message that depends on the individual, because there are some people who also refuse to see failures and start being on paths that, have no sense to them. So distinguishing this, if you're a person who tends to be too hard on yourself and to group certain things as failures when they were not, it's really important to start seeing the way that things were successful in some way. However, on the other hand, if you're someone who's not really contributing to security in any way, and there's no want to actually make things better, it's not so good to then sugarcoat that. So we have to really be able to discern it. We have to be able to know what stage we're in when it comes to how we categorize our previous output. But for most people, I'm feeling that we have to see the sweet parts. We have to see the ways that we have succeeded in order to grasp our successful essence, okay? In order to start to really project in the way that we know ourselves internally. What this Cancer season offers, okay, with the rejuvenating and sort of radical reintroduction energy of Jupiter moving retrograde in Pisces back into Aquarius, Saturn moving retrograde in Aquarius, it's a quincunx energy to the Cancer sun. We love to talk about that, all of the quincunx angles. And there's a lot of them actually this season in Leo season. As stuff goes into Leo, it will then like quincunx Neptune and Jupiter. So we're dealing with a lot of like yod energy. We're dealing with complex quincunxes. And that to me says that there is a roundabout way of actually getting to where we want to be. And there's also a divine sense of intervention at this point in time. There's wow, I did not know that that was actually the source of, my motivation. Wow, I did not actually expect for that person to come through for me. I did not expect for that random person, or that, I'm getting chills as I'm saying this, actually. There's a lot of unexpected events right now, okay? There's a lot of like, wow, I just did not anticipate that this person who I could have never expected kindness from just really came through and like recommended me for something that was really perfect for me. Like there's especially for the cynical person, or for the pessimistic person, or for the person who doubts what they partake in, there's a rude awakening in a positive way where it's like, wow, someone actually came through for me. Wow, I actually landed exactly where I needed to be. Wow, this thing that I was building up in my mind to be something so catastrophic ended up just totally nullifying itself. Like that's the way that this time is positive. Though contrarily, there is also a feeling of, wow, all those years for nothing. Wow, all that time invested, all that money invested, and it's nullified. There's a nullification right now. And it can be positive or negative, but that's why I think we have to sugarcoat, because it's like, it can be like, wow, all that money invested, I lost it. Now I know a lot more about how this stuff works. Or it can be, wow, a lot of money invested, and I lost it, and that's just my identity now is someone who loses money. Like, we don't want that. Cancer can be like Eeyore, kind of like that, We got to really watch out for the black cloud. We got to really watch out for the Eeyore. This is not one of those Cancer seasons, okay? There are many sides to Cancer. It's not just that sort of hermit Eeyore curmudgeon energy. It can also be like the pearl and the oyster. It can be so beautiful. There's such a beautiful side to Cancer energy where you can really feel nurtured and supported and safe and protected. And I think that that's much more the case for this year. This year's Cancer season is about establishing not just protection, but the type of protection that actually feels good. Sometimes protection can feel imprisoning, through like walls, or through separating yourself from nature. It can kind of feel like you are not free. And I think that this Cancer season is trying to teach us how we can feel protected, yet also feel free, yet also feel nurtured. Okay. Something else that I want to talk about for July, and this is very important actually, is the moving on process from previous emotional trauma. Okay. I think that Gemini season, June 2021, with the eclipses, all the lunar activity, probably would have had flashbacks for a lot of people, because again, Gemini is the communicative sign. There is a dark side to Gemini, and all the moon energy, and also Jupiter moving into Pisces. I think there was a very unnerving psychological aspect to it. Flashbacks, the feeling of being post-trauma, the feeling of being beholden to the past in some way, the fear of how the past can impact us later, and the lack of control. Okay, this is something that Cancer season is going to really challenge, because that is a lot of what the Gemini Cancer cusp is about, and moving from that season, and this year being so foundational, being so segmenting, being so setting. There's a very important challenge to re-landscape or rescape, I'm going to say, our emotional bases, to recover our emotional bases. And that often comes through facing everything. So I feel that many of us have faced a lot coming out of Gemini season. And now, after Gemini season, there's a knowledge of what things were. There's a clarity about the past. I'm getting chills again. This time is wild. It's such a shamanic time. It's crazy. Because in a way, this is not such a deep time. In a way, this is a light and unheavy, airy time. But with that has come a new type of fortification of the deep past, of those more psychological, more deep experiences. And what I'm feeling, and I'm just really taking the time to understand this deeply. This is live, unedited. What I'm understanding about this is there's such a peace that can wash over us, peaceful understanding and acceptance of what has happened, acceptance of one's own humanity, to the point that you are no longer confused about not only the actions of yourself, but the actions of others. And there's really an identification that happens of what role that certain people played in your life. So if you've been particularly confused about who caused what in the past, or about who did what, or about who motivated you how, that ties itself up now, and we start to know, okay, we start to not misplace blame, if we would like. And this isn't 100%, wouldn't it be incredible if every single human really knew, who did what and where the fault was here or there, or humans get really confused a lot of the time about, who causes what. Like if you have infidelity in a relationship, it's a perfect example. A lot of times, people will blame that third party, that third objective party, instead of the other spouse, and it's maybe not, and those are circumstantial details, but it's a good example of how, like, a lot of times people will more quickly want to favor the spouse or favor the person they've been in the relationship with instead of the person that they cheated on with, because they've made that choice, and the choice of who they've committed to reflects back onto them. So it's very difficult. Oftentimes people have a blind side with the spouse or with the person they've chosen, and will more quickly want to look to the outsider to place blame. So to me, triplicities are coming up. This has to do with the Gemini Cancer time. Things where three parties were involved, things where three is a very discordant, hectic number. It's very hard. It's also very powerful. But I think that any type of love triangles, any type of things where three people were involved in something become very clear. And we can actually move on at this point in time too from those long running cycles. This is interesting. This is just a stream of consciousness, but I'm feeling so good about this. I'm feeling that many of us who have been haunted by the meanness of past people now know, okay? And it comes to this sort of shamanic level plateau where instead of freaking out about all those old stories, freaking out about all those old details, our mind going in a million different places about what I did wrong, what these people did wrong, what went wrong here, there, everywhere, it comes to this fine, easy statement of just, I know what she did. I know what he did. I know what I did. I know what we did. There's this new relationship with the past coming in here in July of 2021, where instead of being you were this person to me, and because I was feeling this way, you did all of these complex spider webs of motivations. It's just, I know what happened. I was there. I witnessed that. And it can never be taken away, because the way that those old wavelengths become fossils, in a sense, it never leaves, it's never gone, but it's no longer animated. It's no longer in control of my life now. It's no longer in control of the way that I make my choices. I will take back the freedom that I lost. I'm feeling a lot of people, I'm just getting chills like crazy. It's one of the most incredibly spiritual times I've felt in a long time, and I just want to share that abundantly with everyone here right now. Thank you all so much for being here and for going through and for being, within this as well. I think, if we think of law of attraction and how we attract similar people, and there's no coincidence within who we are around and what we pull in and where we're at. I think that all of us here are right at the brink of some type of absolutely groundbreaking discovery, self-discovery, really. Okay. At the brink of some groundbreaking self-discovery right here and right now. And it might not even really be apparent right now, but I think that, and this is stretching out, I don't want to freak anyone out, but by the time of really like January of 2023, there is a reckoning, or there's really a redistributing of certain ties and a certain untouchability, or a certain true overcoming. And I think it's an interesting timeline, and I think it's interesting that this is coming up right now because it really helps us to think about long term. If you guys saw my Jupiter and Pisces part 1 video, I was really talking long term, and I was talking about, because that works in tandem with Jupiter finishing its 12-year cycle and getting back towards Aries, getting back into Aries. Be sure to check that video out. I'll link it below and in the top right-hand corner. But there's intensive long-term planning happening right now. And if you're like me, like I'm kind of tuned that way anyway. I've always been someone who thinks with the long term and tries to think of, higher collective themes and how that relates to me personally, and really trying to work with that. It's one of the best eager, wanting, plausible, creative times for people like that. And it's not always good for that. Like, so there are some times where we're not really actually meant to think about the long term. And once Jupiter gets back into Aries, it's going to be much more like, what do I want to do right this second? Where's my motivation at for this very moment? And it might actually even be a little bit more punishing toward that super long-term thinking. But when Jupiter is so advanced in signs like Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, it really starts to give luck to those lifelines, to those truly healing time ideas. The measuring of time, also with Saturn being in a similar place in the zodiac, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, the way that we think about all of our time, the way that we think about our lifeline is very rewarding to at least journey with that. And something that's really incredible to think about is how once things become so solid, and once things become so much more confident as well, the shape sometimes starts to shift. There is sort of a shape shifting. We have Jupiter in Pisces. We have Saturn moving up to Pisces. And over these next few years, I really feel that people, or things which have once been so stuck, will start to shift. So changes in appearance obviously seem to be happening for a lot of people, but also just big changes even in like a citizenship, or within the shape of a career, or the shape of one's life starts to be plausible within the long term at this point. It's really not favorable for doing it impulsively right this second. But as we start to view the long term, as we start to see what we're cut out for, what some of these life purpose orientations are telling us, we can actually start to shift into that trajectory, or shift into that real distance and be a part of it, okay? To actually be a part of that distance. It's really incredible. Like, I'm really inspired by this period of time. But anyway, everyone, let's go ahead and move into the astrology portion of this video. It's already going so long, but I mean, we have time. So, yes, let's see. I want to first talk about the beginning of July and some of the more mundane astrology transits coming in. So we are starting out July with Mercury still being in retrograde shadow. It has gone direct, so it's already going to feel a lot better than it was in June, but still there might need to be an anticipation of a kind of like manic traffic, or manic communication with other people. Mercury retrograde in Gemini is about lack of communication or even too quick of communication, details that are lost through the speed in which we communicate. So let's all slow down. I'm even going to slow down a little bit. Let's all slow down within our communication and think about what really needs to be communicated. Are we lost in communication in some way? Have we failed to communicate something? Is there something that we are not accepting? Are we clear on what we are communicating with ourselves? Okay, let's think about that. We're also starting out the month with a Moon Chiron conjunction, so we're still very much considering those deep wounds, those wounds that we need to heal. What wounds are still needed to heal? We can perceive it. We can be emotionally aware at the beginning of July over what wounds that we need to heal. Okay. And you might even list it out. Mercury's in Gemini near the North Node. It's like we can maybe actually get some real healing done here. As we feel it, we feel those deep wounds at the beginning of July. And then Mercury in Gemini allows us to communicate that from the gut up into the conscious mind. And we can actually, with the North Node there, get it out and remove certain karmas. It's so karmic. It's so karmic to the degree that maybe a lot of us have something to pay and maybe a lot of us have something to receive as well. Saturn, Pluto, Jupiter, Neptune retrogrades, okay? At the beginning of July, we have pretty much all of the outer planets retrograde, except Uranus, okay? So Chiron is even going retrograde by the end of the month. So this is just the cycle that we're in, where each summer in the Northern Hemisphere, winter in the Southern Hemisphere, there are outer planet retrograde cycles that go in tandem. So basically, you can't really rely on what has previously been your status quo. There's a lot of sense of, just having to trust in a new wavelength, or having to trust in the universe, having to trust in a helping hand that is not necessarily controllable. To me, the outer planets deal with our backdrops, the aspects of our lives that are very long running, that we feel are just a part of us at this point in time. Those things can kind of be in retrograde right now, and we can have a tendency to think more innovative, to think in a more innovative way, to think in a more, non-traditional way. And I think that is helpful. I think that many people need a different scope or need a different way of viewing certain long-running tendencies in their lives. But basically, just with having all those retrogrades, you want to not rock the boat too hard either. You want to not put yourself in any type of vulnerable place, too vulnerable, that is, something that seems unsafe or something that seems too risky. Something that's really beautiful this month is that we are building up to a Venus-Mars conjunction in Leo. Venus and Mars are kind of working together and moving together. And as I was talking about at the beginning of this year, July is definitely a month in 2021 where you can definitely find a new relationship. If you're single and you've been wanting to date, this is definitely a time where you can meet someone new, like a fiery, very warm personality, very attractive, easy to attract, easy to be attractive, easy to get your body to where you want it to be, easy to really understand what makes you attractive as well. We can really get into a place where we understand our own attraction and where we understand what is also preventing those relationships, if that's something that we're wanting. I think that this is a very, very benevolent month for meeting new people, even friends, even platonic relationships. It's not just about love relationships, though with Venus and Mars coming together in the sign of the sun, it's very auspicious, actually, for meeting new people. And if it's in your karma, if it's in your aura right now, I think that it will happen. Although if you're single and you see that it's not happening, it's probably going to manifest as something else, like some type of goal or some type of equally as rewarding relationship. Even if it's not a relationship with another person, I think it might be a relationship with a location, like how you relate to where you live, a relationship with your home environment, how you relate to your home. All those things can really start to get so much more attractive, so much more beautiful, and so much more appealing. Okay, July of 2021, going through Cancer season, hitting Leo season. We didn't talk too much about Leo season. We'll talk more about that in the August video. But it's one of the warmest ones. It's so warm, it's so rewarding. There's a soothing, appealing, likely for heat waves though as well. If you're in the northern hemisphere and you're in the summer months, it's very likely to have very extreme heat waves this Leo season. So keep that in mind. We'll talk more about that in August. But also if you're in the southern hemisphere, maybe a slightly warmer winter. That depends obviously on location. But it's likely a warmer time as we've got Jupiter moving retrograde, and by the end of the month already back in Aquarius, okay? Saturn retrograde in Aquarius. Both of those really warm things up, and it mixes with the Leo energy as that's the Leo-Aquarius axis, and it really warms things up. It really opens things up. It really crowns something. It establishes collective relativity. It creates popularity for a lot of people as well. I'm seeing a lot of people with this astrology starting to find their niche, starting to find their soul tribe, starting to find their group, starting to really harmonize with the people that matter to them, healing previous relationship pains, reaching out olive branches, diplomacy. All of those things are very likely right now. In between Leo season and Sagittarius season of 2021, a lot of things can be healed. A lot of new relations can be forged. A lot of ties can be created. Okay, it's really beautiful. There's a lot of really positive, really heartwarming, heart-healing astrology transits happening this month. It's not very ominous, okay? Things really open back up. Jupiter is honestly quite too heavy in Pisces at this point in time as it spent such little time in Aquarius, and now it's retrograding back and doing some unfinished business in Aquarius, which to me looks really entrepreneurial. It looks really open. It looks really breathable. It looks enjoyable, very much kinship oriented. The anaretic degree of Aquarius understands the folly of detachment, so it starts to really think about relationships and kinship more before it hits Pisces and before it goes into that much more open, loving, emotional vibe. And basically, it's just going to be a really, really great July to get your life more so what you want it to be. What needs to change? What needs to open up? What needs to relate more to other people? What needs to be forged? What health things need to be done? I think that people really feel it in their heart now instead of in their mind, whereas in June it might have all been concentrated in the mind with those eclipses on the Gemini-Sag axis. Gosh, that was starting to get old actually, where things were just like thinking about it, thinking about it, thinking about this, thinking about that. Now it's descending into the heart, okay? And we're actually going to yearn for what we need instead of just sort of going through a mental backward and forward action over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It's exhausting, okay? So whatever's feeling exhausting, try to just let it come into your heart and think, okay, what is the best way forward? What have I done? What have I contributed to? And how can I build upon that? How can I open that up? How can I make that something even more representative of who I am? Like really letting the identity start to heal, really letting the identity start to open up to new possibilities, and retaining that discernment, of course, retaining what we need, and letting the heart really discern what is right for us at this time. Okay. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and conclude the astrology portion because there's not that many. I mean, there's some other things that we could talk about regarding quincunxes and regarding. Okay, yes, I'm going to actually talk about that for a second. We have strange quincunxes right now, actually. We're going to have quincunxes from Sun in Leo, Mercury in Leo to Neptune in Pisces. We're going to have quincunx from, yods. Yeah, we're going to have yods. Pluto. Okay, public service announcement. We are going to be having yods, PSA yods, which finger of God energy, so what's going to happen? And let me get an exact date for you guys. This is happening in real time. Let's see. Okay, so the yod is actually not happening until like August 15th, and it's going to be the Sun in Leo at 22 degrees, Neptune in Pisces at 22 degrees, and then Pluto in Capricorn at 24 degrees. So that's really not a July transit, but knowing that we're about to have a huge yod, a big pointing out of the exact karmic connecting point of how we're bridging certain things in our lives into total renovation of a karmic cycle. That's coming in August, so stay tuned to the YouTube channel. We'll talk more about that. And that's probably why July is feeling so formidable, why July is feeling so poignant and important, because we are building up to an interesting yod season in August, and those quincunxes are already setting up in July as well. But anyway, everyone, if you're new here, be sure to hit that subscribe button, the red subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications so you get notified when the August video comes out, as well as the July general readings, which are already available on Patreon, early and ad-free, depending on when you're getting to this video, but they will be up before they hit YouTube, so be sure to check that out. I'll link it below. There's a lot of stuff that I'm planning out for the channel. I'm trying to work on a new premiere cycle, and I have a lot of great content coming up, so be sure to hit that thumbs up button as well. It helps the videos to get out there, and comment below. Let me know how you're feeling about July and what resonated in the video. If you have anything to add, or if you think of any other transits that are coming up, if you're astrologically minded as well, I love to hear feedback or any thoughts that you had on the video or about other transits. I hope you all have a wonderful July. Thank you so much for coming and checking out the video and getting all the way through it. I'll talk to you all soon. Much love. Bye.